In the studio with me is Congressman Michael Cloud. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Yeah, it's boring back here, huh? When you come back to the district, all quiet but that's the way we are down here
Well,
in South Texas.
people are sane here, so that's in
People
Texas,
are sane.
sane, yeah.
We were talking before we came on air that people are people, and you try to send people and people who can relate to, but they have their own stuff. They're people just like everybody else.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And whether it's city council or the county commissioner's court or the state house, they don't have all the answers. They don't have all the solutions.
No.
I mean, there's stuff that we ought to be doing ourselves as a community, as individuals, as groups in our own locality, and waiting for somebody to do it there because I don't know that situation. That's probably the first thing to talk about is a hearing on, and it was a hearing, Coleman, that was designed to do what? What was the purpose of the hearing?
The purpose of the hearing is to hold A.G. Garland in contempt.
Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt.
Yeah, for ignoring subpoenas from Congress. And it kind of went off the rails a little bit.
Because I don't understand how it went off the rails. I mean, all they show us is Marjorie Taylor Greene commenting on the false eyelashes of Crockett, Congresswoman Crockett, about false eyelashes.
Yeah.
And that said, I mean, what was that in response to?
I don't even remember. There was that, and then there was clapbacks from the other side.
Ocasio-Cortez got in and called baby girl.
People talking about hair, and people talking baby girl, and hair color, and body types.
Butch is almost lesbian, a female lesbian.
Yeah, so it got way out of...
Butch body. And I'm just asking, and she spent 2 days, my wife said, trying to clean up Crockett, what she said. Come on, you said what you said. Everybody from the hood know what you said. Talking about, well, I was just asking a question. If I was to say, I mean, Coleman's going like, what does that mean? What is that? Where's my parliamentarian?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. But I'm going to have to give you a few lines so that you can tell them, look, this is Congress. Y'all better recognize. See, can you say it like that? Y'all better recognize.
Y'all better recognize. Yeah.
Yeah, they know what that means.
Yeah, of all the things we prepped for, for that committee hearing, the topics of hair color and eyelashes was not part of the prep we had for that committee hearing. So it was.
Well, Charles said Marjorie Taylor Greene was asking a valid question and Crockett couldn't keep her mouth shut. And that's why she said what she said to her, because she kept interrupting her.
Yeah, we tried to read back the stenographer who's there to kind of keep up, even kind of lost track of what was going on. And then there was more that was off the mics because some of the mics were on and off. And, so the point is we finally got the contempt resolution.
So you got it done.
Out of committee and headed to the House. So.
Okay, so the House has to vote on whether to hold him for contempt.
Correct,
what would that mean?
Well, it would mean he's in contempt of Congress. This should be compelling him to release the audio files that go along with the transcripts that they released.
About why they didn't press charges against Joe Biden, even though they said he did what he did with the documents.
Right.
They said, but the jury probably wouldn't convict him because they said, well, he's just a kindly old man and really a bitter guy, but he's a kindly guy and just.
And they're trying to say, well, you have the transcripts, so you don't need the audio. But, of course, you need the audio to confirm the transcripts. I mean, if the audio says the same thing as the transcripts, then why aren't you willing to release it,
So you can actually hear them talking and responding.
Yeah, right. So
because who can believe the audio? Who can believe anything they say now? That's why they're trying to, and he won't give it to him.
Correct. Which is kind of suspicious. Why wouldn't he give it to him? If there's nothing... They're saying there's nothing to see here, so we don't need to give it to you. Well, if there's nothing to see here, you might as well.
So once the House votes to hold him in contempt, the full House does it.
Yeah.
Then what happens?
It should compel him to come to Congress.
And if he doesn't, then what?
Right now we have a lawless
because
administration,
the DOJ
and specifically a lawless DOJ. So
yeah, because it's the enforcement arm of what would be done anyway.
Yeah. So it's a troubling state that we're in right now in the country, because the whole way you get past, just studying history, the way you get past the conquest ethic and might equals right is you have a respect for the rule of law, and right now we don't have that in our country, specifically from our Department of Justice and in this administration, and so we're seeing that in a number of different ways, from how investigations are selective, prosecutions are selective. Certainly in the Trump case that is before the jury right now. Did have an opportunity to go visit him in New York for that as well in the last couple weeks. But it's very troubling, and it should be for the American people to look at what's going on, because it is the bedrock of what upholds our civilization, is the understanding that the rule of law is paramount.
So maybe nothing, but that's true for a lot of things that the House passed. That if it requires an action by the Department of Justice, that's like sending it to the Senate, where Schumer won't even give it a hearing, won't bring it to the floor.
And that's one of the difficult things right now, and Americans are frustrated. I'm frustrated with it, and understandably they are, in the sense that, from the oversight capacity, we're supposed to be able to bring things to light. We investigate, we bring things to light, and then, when you uncover malfeasance, you refer it to the Justice Department and then take it up, because ultimately we supposedly all want the rule of law. That's not happening right now
because
at
the
all.
Justice, top prosecutor in the land.
Right. And so that's the troubling part. We have had some, good news in other committees in beginning to see accountability. There's still a lot of work to be done, but
Like what?
I'm on the COVID Select Committee.
Okay.
And so the last few weeks we've had a hearing with, we've had a few hearings. We had one with Dosick, who of course was the head of EcoHealth, which is the
middleman on the funding, right?
Right. And so they're the middleman who got the U.S. taxpayer grants and funneled them to the Wuhan lab.
Right.
And so that was a pretty brutal hearing.
Didn't he
him.
admit that gain of function? Well, it depends on what you mean by gain of function.
Yeah.
They try
to get in this whole. That's exactly what I actually said. That in the hearing. I mean, that's exactly what this seems like. There's the legislative and common understanding of gain of function, and then within that, there's a subset of something very specific.
Gain of function means making something more powerful than it is.
Exactly. So by every layman's, and certainly the legal definition and the common understanding of gain and function, taxpayer dollars went to fund gain of function research, and they try to split hairs over, this, that, and the other.
And if you mean this, then yes.
But to me, one of the compelling parts of the hearing was I had asked him, I said, everybody can point to the first couple weeks of COVID. We're trying to figure out what's going on. I said, but knowing what you know now, after everything that's happened, would you do anything differently, or would you continue to fund the Wuhan lab?
Answer?
And he said he would continue to do the Wuhan lab, no regrets, would do everything the same. I mean, after millions of lives lost, people's careers destroyed, businesses gone bankrupt.
In the Yiddish, they got a name, chutzpah.
Yeah. Well, and the point.
You got a nerve.
The point I made to him was like, okay, we know the lab destroyed data. Everybody keeps saying, not everybody, but the Fauci types and his crew will say, well, we don't have data. There's no smoking gun of data.
They were destroying emails
that it came
and
from
everything.
the Wuhan lab, but we have proof that they destroyed the data that it came from the Wuhan lab. And so I asked, you think we should work with labs that destroy data that's significant to these sorts of things? And, he's like, what? And he had no recourse. He's like, yeah, we should continue. And
now he serves at the pleasure of the president.
Well, and thankfully he's been disbarred now. So EcoHealth, following that hearing, will not receive any more federal dollars, and he and Dosick individually was disbarred from getting any federal grants going forward following that hearing. So it's not enough, but it's the beginning of some accountability. Since then, of course, my concern was that they'll pile on him and make him the fall guy and try to he's the guy without bringing accountability to everything else that went wrong. But we're continuing to
It's
investigate.
funny sitting here with this microphone and doing all the research and follow up that one has to do to be able to intelligently talk about a lot of subjects. I can go all the way back to the emails that went during Obama when they had leaks right here and it was too dangerous to do here, and they transferred some of this stuff overseas.
Mm-hmm.
I was when I was in the oil belt, I was trained in shipping, dangerous substances and packaging, and they had some stuff escape going from Atlanta lab to another lab in the country, and it was all dangerous. And they moved this stuff over there. And then there's emails that came from over there in Wuhan and all with them that was saying that they had a problem containing it in the lab.
Yeah.
And they were asking for some remedial, some suggestions on how they can control it, because they were losing control then.
Yeah.
With Fauci in them, and they're all on the email. I mean, I've actually read those emails. You probably read them yourself as part of the hearing. I mean, they were in a mess from the beginning.
And the absurdity to me, as you talk to them, the common thread for all of them is this seems to be like a big science fair project to them. It's like they're completely disconnected from lives lost.
Well, lives don't matter in the midst of what they're trying to achieve.
And for them, it's like just this very interesting project. And it's like, this is millions of lives lost. This is economies destroyed. This is, a couple generations of American ingenuity and development.
You've heard of humanism, right?
Yeah.
Fauci got the top award as the top humanist of the world, and the humanists don't believe in God or anything.
Right.
So people are expendable. I mean, there's no, and those are the people that was in government. But the thing that really got me was when he said about 2 weeks before Trump was sworn in, before a medical group in Washington, he said that this administration is going to face an unexpected crisis of so-and-so and so-and-so. He actually said it before it happened, yet when it happened, he acted like he didn't know it was happening, and he wasn't prepared to deal with it.
There will be a surprise outbreak. Given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand why the history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with. Ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short...
I played that way back when he said that, Georgetown University, it was a black tie dinner. He says, and that was 2017.
Yeah.
2017, before President Trump said, there's going to be a surprise outbreak. This is going to, and you'll see why. And he went on and on and on. And now he sit there and say he didn't know, he wasn't aware, he wasn't. I mean, the guy should be locked up.
And wasn't prepared, obviously, because all the decisions we made following that were...
That's right. In fact, he said, don't wear a mask. Then he said, wear a mask. But he said, don't wear a mask because the doctors needed the mask. Everybody knows the virus is too small for a mask to block or stop. It doesn't work. I mean, it was just a crazy time.
Yeah, one of the first things, we had a closed door deposition. Next week, we go back, and the first thing on the agenda is the public hearing with Fauci.
Oh, he'll be back on?
So all these hearings have been building up. So we had Dosick over at EcoHealth. Then we had Dr. Morenz last week, which was Fauci's right-hand man for 25 years. That was an amazing very telling committee hearing. We can talk about that if you want. And so next week we'll have Fauci. But we had a closed door deposition a few months ago. The very first thing he did, and it just I guess to break the ice, he thought it would be funny, but he walks in, sits across the table from us, and says, "Remember back in COVID, they wouldn't let us sit this close to each other." And and I'm like, "They like." You were the they.
You were the they.
Yeah. Like you don't get to say, you don't get to use the elusive they on this one. It's like and one of the things that was very telling from that deposition to me is we asked about learning loss too, and he was just like, well, I'm not sure. I think the story's still out on that, and so it was again very. He seems to be kind of aloof as to really the human toll this is taken on.
Having done what you're
On all
doing,
of
do
us.
you think that that's how would I say, a barrier to them trying to do that again this election year?
The American people are savvy to a lot of the tricks that have been going on, and that's what I'm seeing when I talk to people. They know these institutions that we've been told we could trust for a long time can't be necessarily trusted at face value, and that's one of the big things we're trying to do is we bring oversight, and then also on the approach side as I work on that committee as well, just to get these institutions and these agencies either defunded or back to a place where the American people can trust them again.
Dominic, you're on with Congressman Cloud.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen. I'll just make it very brief. So the laboratory in Galveston, Texas happens to be a level 4 lab, which is one of the highest security labs. Now, I can't recall if it's Dr. Malone, or which doctor, national level, that actually said this, but I remember hearing them say that Wuhan lab is actually a level 2 lab. Now, how can you justify doing some of the most dangerous research in the world in a level 2 lab?
Oh, so you're asking him a technical question about the lab. I don't.
For me, we shouldn't have been doing that kind of research over there, and shouldn't have been funding it for sure. I mean, we were not supposed to be doing gain of function research, and the fact that we were funding it, especially using taxpayer dollars, is just unconscionable. And again, we have people who destroy data. They were not working in good faith with us. There's a lot of issues there, and especially concerning that the people who are steering U.S. taxpayer dollars, even in retrospect, didn't have concerns about working with a lab like Wuhan. That's one of the issues we're bringing to this whole thing, and why I'm very concerned about. At first, okay, we defunded Dosick, but then there's this idea like, oh, he was this lone actor. Well, no, there's some systemic issues here that we begin.
And which is why it's important to continue to press it.
There's cultural issues.
You had a
right?
follow-up question, Dale, Dominic?
Well, sir, that is correct, right? It is a level 2 lab. I mean, that's what I had heard.
Okay, well, he says it shouldn't have been done in the first place. Whatever level it was something
I don't have
that they
in front of me right
denied, period. So you're talking about because being on the level 2, it was easy for stuff to escape, I think. There
had been a number of warning signs.
Thank you for your call, Dominic. Go ahead.
There had been a number of warning signs about that lab.
A number of them. I told you, I saw the emails from the lab to Fauci about having difficulty containing stuff.
Right.
And they were asking him protocols and stuff that they could help them put in place because they were having problems.
Mm.
So, I read those emails on the air. In conjunction with that hearing, you had another one with another individual, right?
Yeah, we followed up that hearing with Dr. Morenz, who was Fauci's right-hand person for 25 years, fully expecting him to come in and just plead the fifth, because we knew what he had said in the deposition or in the closed-door hearing leading up to the hearing. And he didn't, which thankfully we didn't. But basically, we have a dozen emails or more where he's talking about trying to avoid FOIA. So FOIA, the law that lets us, Freedom of Information Act, lets us investigate what's going on. So basically, we have a huge trail of emails where he's talking about literally don't send stuff to my official account because then they can FOIA it.
Freedom of information.
Send it to my personal email so it won't be investigated. One of the very first things he said in the committee hearing was like, well, Tony or Fauci doesn't like things coming directly to him, and it kind of made it out like he was the fence for Tony in a sense. Like, you can get stuff. So we have it, literally one of the emails said, "We're too smart to let there be a smoking gun in our emails." That was like one of the hearings, and he was trying to say that it was all personal, that it was a joke. It was again this culture that existed between it, to where he has. Dosick was his friend for 20 years, one of his best friends he's funneling dollars to, and then working for Fauci for
But that begs a
years.
question. Debbie asked a question. She says, we, the public, just know too much to let Congress pretend that those hearings will accomplish anything. You'll have the hearings, you'll get the information that a lot of us know,
Right.
even though you're getting these guys to admit it in order to do what? Because unless you get control of the Department of Justice,
Right.
nothing's going to happen. But you'll have it in hopes.
Well, we have gotten Dosick defunded. Like I said, it's the beginning.
Okay.
It's not enough. It's the beginning of accountability. This doctor seems to have perjured himself a couple times during this hearing, and he also has revealed to us that Fauci was most likely using personal emails to get around FOIA as well, and basically they thought they were above oversight of the government, and so that's what these things are revealing. I agree. It's we need more accountability. We need stricter
And we need
punishment,
control,
and we need
of
control
the
of
Department
the
of
Department
Justice.
of Justice. And that's how
Samuel,
important
you're
the
on
numbers
with
can be.
Congressman Cloud.
Good morning.
I can't hardly hear you. You got go ahead. Try again. There's an echo.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, we can hear you better now. Yeah, there was
Okay.
a woo, woo,
All right.
woo, 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 woo. I don't know what that was.
Okay. Hope there's no aliens trying to do anything. But needless to say, Congressman Cloud, greatly appreciate everything you're doing. And thank you for taking my call and just a question. There's a lot of, as far as really appreciate what you're doing with the COVID piece. But, there's some citizens here in Corpus Christi, and we were able to get our city council to remove this Partnering for Vaccine Equity from the $75,000 grant that came through. It's basically pushing the
Vaccine
the shot
among minority
on
groups
minorities.
Right.
and
and it
gay
was
groups.
targeting minorities and ethnic groups.
Mhm.
So the question there is, based on this, is there anything that we as citizens can do that could help you with what you're doing? And then what is your next step as far as after these hearings? What is your next step after that?
The next step obviously is this hearing with Fauci. Hopefully that'll be revealing. He is a slippery snake, so we'll see. But then this two things should lead to investigations by the DOJ. That may have to wait till the next term following November. But then preparing the legislation, which again might not move until we have a new Senate. But to prepare the legislation that would deal with these sort of things, bringing these things to light also help us in the argument. Like when I'm again on the approach side, and everybody just wants to mindlessly plus up department after department after department after department. You build a case file to come and say, no, we're not going to keep funding these things mindlessly. We need to scale back on these things. These areas need to not be funded. We've got to be more cognizant about where we're spending U.S. taxpayer dollars. The one like motivating thing behind me in all these hearings is I think it's unconscionable that right now we are asking the American people to fund the demise of their own country in 1,000 nefarious ways. We can't do that. We should not do that. We are blessed with an amazing country. with natural resources, with everything at our disposal. The only reason we would fail is to shoot ourselves in the foot, which we continue to do at the moment. And we've got to stop funding those kind of things. So it does help build a case file. Like I said, we should be able to refer these to the DOJ.
Republicans are more scared of being blamed for shutting down the government.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we are. I mean, for me, you look at my voting record, and I'm voting against a lot of these wasteful spendings, and it's frustrating to me, like, we can't get the critical mass right now to stand up to some of the spending on these issues, even within the Republican Party. So, we'll see people campaign against certain things and certain principles, and the government's doing this and we need to stop it, and then won't vote to fund it when
One vote to stop funding.
Won't vote to stop funding it when that is our big leverage. Our big leverage is the
Power
purse
of the
strings,
purse.
the power of the purse. The founders understood that, and we think like that is an extreme measure in Congress when that is actually the primary tool for a balance of checks and balances that we're supposed to have according to the Constitution. And I keep saying, I've been saying it for years, let's stop sending them money to do bad things. Whether this is what they're doing at the border, what they're doing in our health agencies. You can go down the list. You can't expect them to change their behavior if you keep funding the bad behavior. And so ultimately, the hearings help build a case file for that. Ultimately, we need more people in Congress who can have a backbone enough to stand up to this spending that's destroying our country.
All right, Samuel.
Yes, and one other follow-on question. One of the things that we've done too is get something called fullytreatable.org. It sounds spelled exactly the same way, and it's all about informed consent of individuals, so they know exactly the harm and the true treatments to this whole deal with COVID-19 and things like that. And we know that one of the things is if there's known treatment, you cannot have a
emergency authorization.
Emergency use authorization. So the other thing is we also know now that there's a grave harm that's been done with these shots. So it appears that the shots themselves were the actual intent. And so now you have people coming down with all types of diseases and everything else because of these shots. So what are we going to do what are you looking at doing to help prevent anything like this, the circumventing of our Constitution with these emergency requirements and things that these governors and everything pushed on the American
That's a pretty broad
population?
question.
Yeah, well, one of the big things.
Well, I'll let you hang up and let him respond.
All right, thank you, sir.
First of all,
God
thanks
bless.
for being involved and engaged. I mean, this is really, I appreciate anyone who's being involved and doing what they can, because in a
citizens gotta
country
do as
of the
much as
people,
they can
by the people, for
themselves.
the people, we've all got a role to play. But one of the big things we can do in Congress is remove the liability shield. If you get an aspirin, it comes with a big, huge disclaimer on it. But that doesn't come with the COVID
Never
shot.
did.
And especially at this point of what's going on, the fact that we continue to say, oh, you need a booster this, booster that, and
But the bottom
no
line, though,
accountability
I'm
for-
hearing is that there needs to be more, anticipating that there's going to be more Republicans in the House, not less, will strengthen the hand of the Republicans, especially if those people are real conservatives.
Yeah, right. I mean, we need people who are going up there who are willing to a lot of it is understanding really the season we're in our country. A lot of people point to Reagan and Tip O'Neill, and that was a great season. I wish we could be there, but that's just not where we are right now. You have two competing worldviews. I say it all the time, but in seasons past, the difference between the right and left was like we wanted to get to the same place, and the discussion was what's the role of government in getting there. Now you have two diabolically opposed worldviews, at least in Washington. I'm not talking about
secular
I'm not talking about
humanists
your
and
friend
then-
and your
and
neighbor,
liberal, right.
but
And maybe you are, though.
maybe, maybe I'm not excluding that either. But what's driving the discussion right now is two competing
But the
worldviews.
fact is that we need more, and that maybe 10, 15 seats will help if Republicans gain those, and there's not so narrow a margin.
Yeah, if you go back to what we did in January and what got labeled the speaker fight, but was really over the rules and structure of the House, and we kind of reformed it, we made a lot of progress. For the first time, we passed appropriations bills we did things the right way as far as spending bills. They were conservative bills, not perfect, but they were the most conservative bills we've seen happen past the House. And things are going kind of great until they weren't going great. As far as turning the corner, I called it rewriting the muscle memory of Congress. If we would have had 5 more Republican votes this season, we would have probably had the breathing room we needed to make that happen.
And to get it from the House, when you pass it, to get it on the floor of the Senate, you're probably going to need to try to. They definitely need to flip the Senate.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
get it away from Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, of course.
He's a snake
of course,
in the grass.
a Republican Senate and a White House that works with us
would
be
help
great.
a lot to right the wrongs.
At the same time, we've had leverage that we've given away as the Republican House time and time again.
Like the budget again.
You come to offend. I mean, there was one point where basically we had the administration in a corner where they could either accept our legislation and figure out how to cut $10 billion or not accept our legislation and figure out how to cut $100 billion. So we had them in a pretty good corner. We kind of let them out of the box over my vote, I should add. But we've got to be strong when it comes to these.
Dale
sorts of things.
wants to ask. I'd like to know if Mr. Cloud voted to send money to Ukraine.
I have not. No.
Okay. That's
we had that recent funding bill, which was the way the House leadership brought it to us too was back to the and right now what's going on within the Republican conference in Congress is there's almost like the swamp strikes back season. We had this overhaul of Congress, and now the swamp is trying to stop back and get back to the old way of doing things. And that aid package was they did it in a way to where we voted on separate bills, but then what they called merged it. They joined the bills procedurally before it went to the Senate. It was a way to completely roll conservatives, but it was a way to roll the honest process of the House too. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff we're trying to stop. And it's very simple. Let's do what we say we're doing. Let's have our, when we say these are the numbers, let them be the real numbers, not there be secret side deals and all these different kind of things. Let's be honest with the American people about what we're doing and do what we say we're going to do.
John asks, well, he makes a statement. Mike Johnson is totally on board with the Democrat worldview. What's the story on Mike Johnson? And I know you can't really get into because he is the speaker. And
he's the speaker.
They was raves about him at the beginning.
Well, and we had hoped for a lot more out of that. For me, it's just been honestly a lack of courage when it comes to these pivot points, and the chances to push conservative legislation. So, I don't know how better to sum it up, but so thus far has been a discouragement. I'm still holding that hope that he turns a corner. I think he wants to do the right thing, but right now it's been pretty lackluster.
Yeah, and to continue to rotate speakers doesn't help the cause either.
No, and especially at the season that we're at, we're going to be electing voting for speaker again in January.
Unless they want to do like, who was that guy that marched down through the South? They changed generals, and he burnt the South down, but they won.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah, I don't remember.
Sherman.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, there was another guy there. They removed him and put Sherman in. Sherman burned it all down. Said, okay, this we'll the scorched earth policy. Yeah. So are you on any committee to deal with any of the national stuff, or that's the whole Congress? Like NATO and what's going on with Israel.
Those funding bills come before all of Congress, obviously, and I'm on the Appropriations Committee and I'm on the Oversight. The Appropriations Committee, all the funding goes through it. So I'm not on the national or I'm not on the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee, but the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee meets, they vote on it, and then it'll come to.
You still see what they
it'll come to our committee
to justify funding.
Yeah, it'll come to our committee before it goes to the floor. So we have.
Well, what about this Biden withholding that equipment from Israel.
I mean, this
And lied and said we haven't made a decision. Yes, you did. You're not sending it.
this is once again, and one of many opportunities where where the Biden administration ignores the clear intent of Congress. So again, you can look at our border, you can look at the funding that went to support Israel, from a military standpoint, and how he was withholding that, which ironically is what they tried to, when it came to the Ukraine, stick Trump with when it came to impeachment, basically saying that he was holding up aid to the Ukraine and therefore needed to be impeached. But, again, we have a Biden administration, you can point to a lot of the activities, again, the border, student loans, whatever it is, they right now do not seem to be bound by the law and certainly the intent of Congress. So it's troubling.
It's got to be troubling, especially the way they do it. I don't want to ask that question.
What's that?
No, somebody's on the phone asking, what's the name? Okay, yeah, that's not an appropriate question to ask. Anyway,
Okay.
what more would you like to tell us about what you intend to do if you're sent back?
Well, I can tell you what we've been working on the last few weeks. Aside from what's going on in Washington, got to visit Trump. Going to the hearing, and I can say I was with him the day after Mar-a-Lago was raided. Again with him and he's just unflappable in these moments. He really is. It's unfortunate to see what's happening, and we're all watching and waiting to see what the jury deliberates. Also, we had an overnight trip to Turks and Caicos. We had 5 Americans who had been detained for having loose rounds of ammo. Literally, sometimes in some of the cases, it had slipped into the seams of the bags to where the only way a person would have known it was in there was if they had an X-ray machine in their house. And so they were facing the hard time in their prisons there, facing a minimum 12 years mandatory minimum. We visited, kind of pleaded their case with the leaderships there. Turks and Caicos had passed a law in February, basically cracking down on it, and our Americans kind of got sucked up in the unintended consequences of it. So we've pushed for that, and so far we have 3 of the 5 stateside again, and are continuing to have high hopes that the other 2 will be released soon. Just continuing to do everything we can to work for the American
Anything
people.
on the
One
border?
of those people was from our district. The border, we've continued to push for HR2, continue to push for everything that's happening. Right now, the Senate keeps trying to, because it's election year, come up with something that they can pretend to pass through Congress so that they can message on the border. But the clear understanding is that they have not done their job.
And you still
so-
got the problem with home rule in D.C. Your oversight committee is supposed to run Washington, D.C., have oversight.
Yeah.
And yet they vote to allow non-citizens to vote after, being in D.C. 25 days or 30 days?
Yeah, so we have legislation to deal with that. Mayorkas did come before our committee, and we grilled them pretty good. You can make sure you sign up for our newsletter because we do send these out. So if you go to cloud.house.gov,
So you
We
can't
send out our
stop in
email.
the District of Columbia, which is not a state and all. It's run by the federal government,
Right,
supposedly.
right.
They said non-citizens can vote.
and
And you can't stop it because Democrats voted it down in the House.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know if it was every Democrat. The vast majority of Democrats voted against prohibiting non-citizens to vote, which tells you a lot of what's going on. When everybody's like, "Well, why are millions of people being allowed into the country?" Well, here's a clue as to maybe why. You begin to see these jurisdictions signing up non-citizens to vote, which has been something that again hasn't been a partisan issue in the past.
Rich, you're on with Congressman Cloud.
Hey,
Hey,
gentlemen,
Rich.
please keep speaking for me because, we look at some of this stuff and, you made a comment earlier which made me call. Junior congressman, junior, whatever. Yeah, we're all elementary kids to begin with, and we become juniors and then we move on. One of the things that the swamp wants to keep everybody back on is, well, wait a minute. We've done it this way for so long. why do we elect
Yeah, exactly.
people like yourself, my friend, to come up and say, that's not right? That's not right. Hey, take the curtain back. It's not right.
I think more and more people, though, Rich, are doing that around the country. And that's what we're hoping, that the 10 to 15, at least minimum, more Republicans that win in November. And that's an anticipated number.
And that sentiment is growing in Congress. It's just not to the tipping point yet. So we've got to keep working, not give up. But to your point, literally, when we were having the debate over the rules and whether we should change or not, we had one member get up and literally say, I've been here for 30 years and this place works just great. We're like, by what metric?
Yeah, I like my Model T as well. It's in my driveway with my Corvette in the garage.
Yeah, and our point was, let's at least try something different. If it doesn't work, we'll change it again. But the idea that we're going to keep doing the same thing over and over is just insanity. It's the Albert Einstein once said, you can't fix problems with the same kind of thinking you used when you created them.
Not to talk over you, but honestly, the new way of thinking, you have to think a little bit different out of the box instead of the way the box was for the last 60 years.
Yes, sir.
Agreed.
We're moving that way.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, guys.
And thank you for taking the time to call. Well, I appreciate you stopping by. Always, when you're in town, you were very informative. We get the information. You don't duck and you don't dodge. So thank you. And be safe and be well.
Well, thank you. God bless you.